So this is the next set on linear arrangement now, but again a very good level of question. It is saying that an Indo-Australian Cricket Committee comprises 8 persons. These are the name of those 8 persons who are sitting in a row in the given order from left to right, all facing the north direction. So there are, how many persons are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. They all are facing the north direction. So that means that our left is their left and our right is their right. Okay. In a row in the given order. There's a special thing here that they are sitting in this order only. So James would be sitting here, Peter here, Roger here, Nathan here, Brendan here, Ricky here. Okay, there Roger is this guy, Ricky is this guy, Shikhar is this guy, and Rohit is this guy. Okay, because there were 3 people with the name with their names starting with R, so I had to mention their names separately. Half the committee members are Australian. Basically, that means that 4 of them are Indians and 4 of them are Australians. Because half of them are Australians. There are 3 secretaries, 2 joint secretaries, 2 VPs, and 1 president. Okay, you need to figure out the posts and the nationalities. So what we need to figure out, because the arrangement is already given to you, you need to find out the post and their nationality. Like James belonged to which particular country, India or Australia? Some things are mentioned to us. Each secretary and the president always sit next to at least one joint secretary. Okay, so each of the secretary and the president always sit next to one joint secretary. So if there's a secretary, a joint secretary must be here or here. Similarly, if there's a president, then the joint secretary must be here or here. These are the 2 options. No 2 Indians are sitting next to each other. So that by that we mean that they are sitting in alternate ways. Australian, Indian, Indian, Australian, Indian, Australian, Indian, Australian, something like this. James is not Indian. If James is not an Indian, then James is supposed to be an Australian. So if he's an Australian, then this guy would be an Indian, and this guy would be an Australian, and this guy would be an Indian, this guy Australian, this guy Indian, Australian, and Indian. Okay. One of the secretaries is sitting at one of the ends. So one of the secretaries sitting at one of the ends. Okay. So the secretary, James can be the secretary. That is one option. And the second option is Rohit can also be the secretary. Okay, because one of the secretaries is sitting at one of the ends. So if one of the secretaries is sitting at one of the ends, then he must be having a joint secretary adjacent to him. Okay. So similarly, in this particular case, if this guy is a secretary, then this guy should be a joint secretary. Red is one combination, black is one combination, which is possible. One case basically. The Indian VP sits to the immediate right of the Australian VP. Okay. So there were only 2 VPs. That means that one of them is an Indian VP and another one is an Australian VP. Okay. So the Indian VP, so you mean right of Australian VP, right is which side? This side. So Indian VP, they both would be sitting in this fashion. Who is not sitting at any of the ends? So that means somewhere in between they would be sitting. So who is not sitting at any of the ends? Who is used for the second person? So basically, this guy, the Australian VP. Okay, exactly one VP and exactly one joint secretary are Australian. That we already got to know. And one joint secretary is an Australian. How many joint secretaries do we have? Two. So one of them is an Indian and one of them is Australian. That means this. No two secretaries are sitting next to each other. So uh, two secretaries cannot be sitting next to each other, and two secretaries are Indians. Two Indians are there, and one Australian is there. Something like this. Okay. So if we come to place them now, there was a line mentioned that the Indian VP sits to the immediate right of the Australian VP, who is. So that means that the Australian VP is not sitting at any of the ends, but the Indian VP can sit at any of the ends. Okay, so let's make him sit. So this guy is an Indian. Okay, this guy is an Indian, and if he is a VP, then he can sit at one of the ends, and thereby this guy would become an Australian, right? In this particular case, the above black case is not possible at all, right? So as it is mentioned that the three secretaries and there is one president and three secretaries, they should have a joint secretary at with them, adjacent to them. Okay, but there are only two joint secretaries are there. One has already taken place here, so this place should be filled by either a secretary or a president, right? Similarly, we can say that this guy should be a joint secretary and this guy should be a secretary or a president. So in this way we'll get three secretaries, we'll get no, this won't be possible. This guy would be a secretary or a president because we need to make the maximum utilization of the joint secretary because we have only two of them, right? So this guy would be a secretary or a president, and thereby the joint secretary would be somewhere here accompanied by a secretary or a president on either of his sides. That is the only case in which joint secretary can accompany both the secretary and the vice president. Okay. Let's come to the another point. One of the joint secretary is supposed to be an Indian and one of them is supposed to be an Australian. Let's see that is happening. This one is an Indian joint secretary and this one is an Australian joint secretary. So this case is also possible. So as of now, the black case is not something which we need to pursue more. This is something which we are getting. Let's see more things about it. One of the secretaries sitting at one of the ends, we have already taken care of that. Exactly two secretaries are Indian. Two secretaries are supposed to be Indian. So this place is taken by a Australian. This is already taken by an Australian. So only one Australian can be a secretary. So this guy cannot be a secretary. So this guy has to be a president. So this guy cannot be a president. And see, both of them are Indians. Secretary, and president. So this becomes our solution. I'll explain once again. See this? Step by step, I'll explain it to you. They all are facing north. This is the position of James, Peter, Roger, Nathan, Brendan, Ricky, Shikhar, and Rohit. Okay, who are sitting in a row? They are sitting in a row in this particular order only, from left to right, all facing the north direction. Okay, half the committee are Australian, which means 4 Australians and of them are Indians. There are 3 secretaries, 2 joint secretaries, 2 VPs, and 1 president. Okay, each secretary and the president sit next to at least one joint secretary. Okay, so just by reading this particular line, what do I get to know? That if a joint secretary is sitting, he should accompany a secretary or a president. Okay, because there are only 2 joint secretaries and there are 4 people. Please note this point. There are 4 people who he has to be adjacent to. So if this guy is a joint secretary, he should have a secretary on both or a president on both his sides. And similarly, the case would be for the second joint secretary as well. Only that is the case when 3 plus 1, 4 people he can accompany. Okay, so this is a for sure thing which is supposed to happen. Okay, so no 2 Indians are sitting next to each other. That means if the first person is an Australian, then the second would be an Indian, third would be an Australian, fourth would be an Indian, and so on, so on. Or if the first person is an Indian, second would be an Australian, third would be an Indian, fourth would be an Australian, and so on. But he's saying that James is not Australian, not Indian. So James would be Australian. So this guy would become Indian now. This guy Australian. This guy Indian. This guy Australian. This guy Indian. This guy Australian. And this guy Indian. Right? One of the secretaries is sitting at one of the ends. So either James can be a secretary or Rohit can be a secretary, because one of them is sitting at one of the ends. The Indian VP sits to the immediate right of the president, Australian vice president. So Australian vice president sitting here. His right position is this position. So the Indian vice president would be sitting here. And as we know, there are only 2 VPs. So it means that one of them would be an Australian VP and the another one of them would be the Indian VP. Who is? So Australian VP is not sitting at any of the ends. So if he is not sitting at any of the ends, so we try to make that can the Indian VP be at any of the ends? So let's see. If this guy is a VP, if I am saying if this guy is a VP, this guy would be an Australian VP because they are supposed to sit next to each other only. Okay, so this is one position for the VPs. The second position for the VPs is this one, VP. This is a second option for them. This is a third option for them, VP. Okay, the fourth option for them is not this one, but this one, VP and VP. But Australian VP cannot sit at any of the ends, so this option is gone. So these are the 3 options which are left. Okay, these are the 3 options which are left. Now let's read ahead. Exactly 1 VP and exactly 1 joint secretary are Australian. Okay, 1 joint secretary, 1 VP is Australian. We already got to know. 1 joint secretary is an Australian, he said. Okay, so if 1 joint secretary is an Australian, that means 1 Australian and 1 Indian joint secretary exists. So as we have got this particular thing, so the joint secretary should, if this guy is a secretary, right? If this guy is a secretary, then this guy should be a joint secretary for sure. And if this guy is a joint secretary, this guy also should be a secretary or a president. So this option is gone. The same way, if this guy is a secretary, then this guy is supposed to be a joint secretary, and this guy is supposed to be a secretary or a president. There's a second case that we have tried to take. No two secretaries are sitting next to each other. Okay. So if I take the above case, I should have uh, exactly two secretaries are Indians. So that means that two secretaries are Indian and one secretary is an Australian. This is also the information that we got. So if in the above case, let's the case more intensively. In the above case, if this guy is a secretary, Indian secretary, and this guy is secretary or a president, so let's take the case in which if this guy is a secretary or a president, so the joint secretary should be here. Joint secretary can be here, I should say. But if I don't make the joint secretary sit here, because in that case, both of them would become, both the joint secretary would become Indian. If joint secretary is seated here, then he is also Indian and he is also Indian. That should not be the case, right? So that's why I didn't take joint secretary here. So let's take joint secretary here. If joint secretary is here, then in that particular case, he should be having a secretary or a secretary or a president on either of his side because of this particular information given to us. Okay. But both the secretaries cannot be sitting next to each other, right? So one of them has to be a president. So that means the president is only one. So this guy is for sure a secretary only. So either of Roger or Nathan, one of them would be a secretary and one of them would be a president. Okay. How many secretaries are Indians and Australians? One Australian is a secretary and the another secretary cannot be an Australian now. So this position is gone. It means the Roger is an Australian and a president. So if the secretary is gone here, then the president is gone here. The president cannot be Nathan, who is an Indian. So Nathan would be a Indian secretary. It means, okay. If we take this particular case, all our conditions are satisfying, and thereby we can say that this guy is a VP and this guy is a VP. Okay, just see, all the cases are adding up now. Each secretary and the president always sit next to at least one joint secretary. See, this is a joint secretary and he has one secretary on his left and one president on his right. In the same way, this uh, Brendan guy has one secretary on his left and another secretary on his right. Okay. No two Indians are sitting next to each other. Yes, they are sitting alternate. James is not an Indian, so the first person who would be there, he would be a Australian, and then Indian, then Australian, and Indian, something like this. One of the secretaries is sitting at one of the ends, so we made him sit, and we formed two cases. The first case turns out to be the winner for us, so that's why we didn't think about the other case as of now. The Indian VP sits to the immediate right of the Australian VP, who is not sitting at any of the ends. Okay, so this should be their positions, and that is how we thought about them. Exactly one VP and exactly one joint secretary are Australians. Okay, we noted these points, and they are coming out to be true as well. See, exactly one VP is an Australian. Yes. And one joint secretary is an Australian? Yes. Right? No two secretaries are sitting next to each other? Yes, they are not sitting next to each other. Exactly. Two secretaries are Indians. Yes. This Nathan is a secretary and an Indian. This Ricky is a secretary and an Indian. Exactly, two of them are Indians. And a third one, who is this James guy, is an Australian. Okay. This is the complete solution of this particular arrangement. It was a very good question. I am sure you understood it very properly. I have tried to make the best utilization of the PPTs as well, so that you can note it down and think about all the options and how I processed this particular information. Okay. Coming to the second scenario of linear arrangement, second type of linear arrangement, I should say, which is north facing and south facing. Okay. These are some girls, 8 girls, 8 friends are there, all of whom have different heights. Okay, they are standing in 2 rows. Sometimes we talk about height, sometimes we'll talk about floor, sometimes we'll talk about even the ranks, something like this. Okay, in all the cases we'll use these signs or these signs to figure out such cases. Okay, they are standing in 2 rows of 4 girls each. This is a way, with 4 facing the north direction and 4 facing the south direction. Okay, so these the black colored girls are facing the north direction, and the transparent colored girls are facing the south direction, something like this. Okay, you need to figure out the order in of their heights and the position in which they are standing based on the information above. Okay, Teji is shorter than Kali. Teji is shorter than Kali. The tallest girl among the 8 is neither standing at any of the ends nor facing the north. So basically, the tallest girl is facing south. Okay, so the tallest girl would be either this girl or this girl. These two can be the tallest girls. Okay. Avni is shorter than Gati and is facing south. Okay, Avni is facing south. So Avni is in the top column, and Avni is shorter than Gati. Pari is the shortest among the 8 girls. Okay, so Pari would be the shortest one. Everyone is taller than Pari, so her rank would be 8 in the order of their heights, I should say. 8 girls, and is standing opposite Neha, who is facing south. So Pari is facing north, it means. So Pari is facing north, and Pari has opposite to her Neha. Okay, and standing directly opposite Neha, who is facing south. Okay, so Pari and Neha are opposite to each other. Dia is taller than Fiza. Dia is taller than, sorry, I should write like this. Dia is taller, right? Dia is taller than Fiza, but shorter than Teji. So Dia is shorter than Teji. And as we know that Teji is shorter than Kali. Okay. So we have tried to combine these two statements. Dia is much shorter than Teji. Okay. All taken care of. Kali is standing at the second position to the right of Dia. Kali is standing, but in which direction we don't know. Okay. right? We don't know the position where Kali and Diya are standing, so we cannot say which is the right and which is the left. Okay. Neha is shorter than only two girls, so Neha is supposed to be at the third position, right? Shorter than only two girls. So Neha is supposed to be the third tallest girl. Two girls, Avni and Gati. So that means Avni would be in the second position, Gati would be in the first position, and Neha would be in the third position. So first, second, third, we have already got. The eighth one also we have already got. Okay, the four of them we have got. So these four would be somewhere in between them only, right? So if I come to write them in the properly order, I would write Gati is the tallest, Avni is the second tallest, Neha is the third tallest, and P Pari. Pari is the smallest, shortest, I should say, and other four of them are in this order. So F, D, T, and K. This should be the order. We have got the order now of their heights. Now we just need the arrangement. Teji is standing opposite Fiza, who is facing south. Who is used for the second person? So Fiza is facing south. Fiza is facing south, and Fiza has Teji opposite to her, right? Diya is standing at the third position to the left of Pari. We know Pari is facing north, right? We know Pari is facing north. So Diya is standing at the third position to the left of Pari. So if Pari is standing here, then means the third position to his left would be first, second, and third. So Diya would be here, right? Now the sixth line would make sense to us because we have got Diya now. Kali is standing at the second position to the right of Diya. So the second position to the right of Diya would be first to the right and second to the right. So Kali would be here, and Pari has Neha opposite to her, right? And the only position left is for Teji now. So Teji would be here, and Fiza would be here. Is Fiza the tallest? No. So the tallest girl is whom? Gati. So Gati would be here. So the only person left here is A, Avni. So in this way, we got the 8 positions as well, and in the same way, we also got their heights. Okay. So this is how you can be able to solve such caselets. Okay. AFGN is correct. DTKP is also correct. So we got the informations and we were able to solve this particular caselet also. Let's move to the next one now. These are 7 friends. Ryo, these are the name of the 7 friends, had to open an office each and decided to do it in the same building. Okay, so 7 friends are deciding to build an office in the same building. The building has 5 floors numbered 1 to 5. Okay, so the building would be having 5 floors numbered 1 to 5. So it means in 5 floors we have to make 7 people live. Okay, so on the same floor then there will be more than one person stationed at least. In 2 such floors would be there, or there can be in one particular floor there can be 3 people also, and in others one people. So these are just the information you should go straight away in your mind while you are reading such statements. Okay, these are things you should start thinking more. And each floor hosts the office of at least one of the 7 friends. It means no floor is vacant. Please read the information given below and figure out the occupants of each floors. Okay, so these are some of the statements which are given to you. Please try to read these particular statements and solve them, and then we'll start discussing. You can pause the video and solve these particular case rates.